around the bye week. If you saw this yesterday, Michigan is putting their foot down on the gas pedal for Bryce Underwood. It was reported yesterday that Michigan is presenting a $5 million NIL deal to five-star quarterback and LSU commit Bryce Underwood, who's approaching 300 days as a committed player to the LSU football program. I mean, he has been committed for nearly a calendar year, but he's right in Michigan's backyard out of Bellevue, Michigan. Plays at a small high school up there, and unanimously the consensus number one player in the 2025 cycle. Not only the best quarterback in the cycle, but like we said, 2025's number one player. According to a report from Pete Nakos yesterday at On3, Michigan has offered Underwood an NIL package that would pay him north of $5 million over the next 3 to 4 years, however long he stays on campus in Ann Arbor. According to On3, the offer is on par with the package that LSU has presented to the five-star. With just about over a month left before the early signing period for the 2025 class, which Underwood is going to be a part of, obviously the Wolverines are pulling out all of the tricks, all of what they have in the bag to see if they can't get the number one player that's right in their backyard to flip. And look, this makes some sense in the fact of, let's just for a minute play devil's advocate. Let's say that Bryce Underwood was in Denham Springs, which is what Bellevue is to Ann Arbor. I mean, it's a 25-minute drive, 15-minute drive from campus, from what I understand. Let's say he's sitting in LSU's backyard and he's been committed to Michigan for nearly 300 days. And truth be told, has not looked like there was any possibility of him flipping. And I say that from the outside looking in the sense of, look, he's the number one player in the country. He can get as much attention as he wants. If he opens it up his social media DMs, if he's on social media, if he's giving interviews, if he's out there and he's saying, hey, look, I'm committed to LSU, but I'm also open and wanting to go see people and visiting other schools and going on official visits and going to big atmospheres. He could have been front row at the Ohio State-Oregon game. He could have been front row to the Texas-Alabama game. Or, excuse me, the Texas-Georgia game. He could have been front row to the Ole Miss-LSU game. He could have had the red carpet rolled out for him in College Station for Texas A&M LSU. My point is, Bryce Underwood has the control of this thing in his palm. Like, he's the one that really kind of navigates it. His actions have told me that he's firmly committed. Like, just watching him move, right? He doesn't go to a lot of games. He's not on social media. He's not saying he's open for business. He's not saying that he's around looking at other schools. He's been entrenched to LSU for nearly 300 days. And throughout those 300 days, it's very rare that I think anybody has thought, man, he's going to flip. He's going to decommit. Or how committed is he? And if you're Michigan, at this point, you're thinking, we got to do something. Hey, got nearly a month left. We're running out of days. We're running out of time. What are we going to do? And you tap into some of your high level, from a financial standpoint, boosters. One of them being Dave Portnoy, who runs Barstool Sports. And you get aggressive. Now, I'm not necessarily concerned about this. I will say that the one thing that jumps out that is a little, kind of makes you feel a little, what's going to happen here is some of the quotes that Jaquan Underwood, Bryce's dad, has given to On3, and he did it over the summer. And it was just talking about the money. And I know for a fact that the Underwood package is not $5 million over 3 years, 4 years in cash money. Like, it has a value of up to $5 million. And I think he actually needs to stay that 4th year for it to hit that much. But you're talking about like car, housing, and the cash, right? Like, I mean, there's other things that go into this that can supplement the value of financially money changing hands. I don't know what the deal is with the Michigan offer. I don't know if that's straight money, straight cash, whatever it's going to be.
Straight cash only.
But one of the things that I know LSU is concerned about over this push by Michigan is not necessarily Bryce. I think LSU has done about as good a job as they've ever done recruiting anyone when you're talking about just the player. I mean, Underwood, from what I understand, is so completely sold on LSU that has been, I mean, look at his actions. He hasn't, he's not looking anywhere else. He doesn't want to go anywhere else. I mean, like he loves to go to walk-ons. He loves to drive the golf cart around. You know, I mean, he loves the campus. He loves the things that we probably take for granted. So he does, from what I understand, have family in his ear around Michigan saying, that's a lot of money, man. You know, I mean, that's a lot of money that you can help out a lot of your family with, that you're just, from up to this point, have not shown a real interest in listening to. How pretty was that?
It's intoxicating.
Like, how pretty is that?
I set myself up for failure over here.
Good Lord.
Can't happen. But, I mean, like you said, if you're Michigan, you have to make a push. This is like if you had Ron Perlew in your backyard and you said, oh, we tried. It's like, no, you better really try,
right.
Especially in the day and age of NIL, name, image, and likeness, and you have a booster like Portnoy who says, I'll give you $3 million. Go try. This is them trying, but you've seen Underwood come out at multiple stops and say, what's Michigan got? Like, if it comes down to the money, which is another thing that you've heard Shea Dixon comment on, you've heard, like, people on the inside of recruiting comment said LSU's matching. Whatever number you throw out there, LSU matches. Because this is he's your future. You've doubled down, you found your guy, and you said, almost to the point where you want Nussmeier to go pro. That's how much you want this thing to happen. But they're not going to get outbid.
I think that there's definitely a sentiment of you know, the Nussmeier story, I think, here, of how it affects Underwood.
It's a butterfly effect.
Up until last weekend, I thought for sure that Nussmeier was a pretty lockstep first-round pick that was going to go pro. I don't know how much he hurt his status of grading out as one of the top quarterbacks in the draft. But it wasn't as for certain after the A&M game as it felt like it has been throughout points of the season that he was going to be gone next year. It's going to be an interesting case of what happens there, because Underwood, in my opinion, is the type of kid that I'm not saying that he comes in and starts day one.
I am.
But he is the type of player that once he gets into the game, it's going to be really hard to take him out. It's going to be really difficult to take him out of the game because, it's – and I know Marcel Reed was put into a perfect situation last Saturday night where, the other team wasn't prepared. His skill set is opposite of what the other guys really is, and he was – but once you saw Marcel Reed last week for Texas A&M, and I know that he's played this season already, how could you ever even imagine not playing with him as your quarterback? And I know that it's not always going to look like Saturday night in Kyle Field for Reed, but it never looked like that for Connor Wegman, right? Where it was that electric, where it was, it's Spencer Rattler, Caleb Williams. I mean, Rattler was solid. Then Caleb Williams got into the game, and you were like, whoa. That's totally different. Kid, you're done. You're in.
How y'all like my new offense?
I mean, I think that could be the Underwood effect when he steps onto the field. I mean, not only that, look at him physically.
Oh, he's ready.
Like, he is.
You gotta.
What are you doing, kid?
Yeah, we gotta get that in the end zone.
I mean, like,
that's something you tell your kids about.
What are you doing? I mean,
we're saving the clock.
What are you doing, son? I mean, you got 2 yards.
I don't think Aaron Anderson's doing that.
Look how easy that is.
It's so easy. He's intoxicating. It really is. It is. I'm in a bad spot.
I think they're okay.
I do too.
I really do. I
really
think.
Yeah.
So what the deal is from LSU standpoint is that they need LSU's environment next Saturday night to be LSU Bama on 10, and they need to show the Underwoods. You know, from Bryce's standpoint, this is why I've been committed for 300 days here. You know, this is why I've never wavered. This is why I've not gone anywhere else. And then you can go talk the football stuff where, I mean, you know, the succession of, you know, Burrow, Daniels, now Nussmeier, of guys over the last 5 years that have played at a very high level that are making and going to make a ton of money playing, you know, professional football and have a stacked trophy case after they leave LSU is what you sell kind of, you know, behind closed doors. I think this is going to be exciting. I think it's going to be, you know, kind of down to the wire, but ultimately I think LSU is going to win out here. I don't know if they can go dollar for dollar on this thing. Like, I mean, I know that there's money that has to be spread around within this class, and if there is a point where, you know, I mean, it kind of goes to us. Well, I mean, I'm just telling you from the financial capability standpoint that there is a wall. You know what I mean? Like, you're not sitting in a place where you can say blow the whole thing on one player. I don't even think this is a one. I get the importance of Bryce Underwood, but LSU does not have an infinite amount of money here to play with in NIL.
I agree because it's been known that they don't. But I would also serve that this is one of the cases where Gordon, $8 million, whatever the number is. I know you got a lot, and I know you do a lot for LSU, but this is one of those times that it's coming personally from the checkbook. This isn't a collective deal. This is get it done.
And I think that there is some players within the collective that you can go to if things get desperate, where you say, "Hey, look, man, we're in a spot.
Yeah.
You know, we're in a bind." But you know, you also have to be very cognizant of how this money, how these funds are being spent, because it is. I mean, you are running essentially. Now and into the future, you are running a franchise that's built on a, you know, not necessarily a salary cap, but you're built on a budget. You know, I mean, you're built on, this is what you have to spend. You know, I mean, and don't come back next year and tell me that this is this year's Bryce Underwood and I need $6 million more. You know, I mean, like, this is what you get. Go make it work, right? And you've also got people within that community that can help you out with some creative stuff, vehicles, houses, places to live, you know, things that can help and provide value that's not going into your checking account, right? Like, that's not necessarily money that you can spend. Absolutely, right? So this is going to be a pretty interesting month on this Bryce Underwood stuff. LSU has an official visit set up with Underwood. He's bringing down his entire family next weekend, from what I understand. I mean, everybody who means anybody to Bryce Underwood will be in Baton Rouge with him next weekend. So, you know, I mean, if you're LSU, I don't think that this could set up any better for you to close him, right? Like, if you're given the scenario 2 years ago where you say, hey, 2 years from now, you're going to have the number one quarterback in the country, the number one player in the country, committed for nearly a year. A month before signing day, the local school that he's from is going to make a push on him, but you'll still have the LSU-Alabama game as an official visit in your back pocket within that last month. I would say that is the perfect scenario. I can't script it any better than that. Let's sign up. You've been committed to him for 300 days. They've been committed to you. You still have every coach that he's been recruited by committed to, in conversation with. Denbrock didn't have that much to do with Underwood. This has been really Joe Sloan, Frank Wilson, Cortez Hankton, and Brian Kelly leading this charge. All of those guys still on campus, still on staff. And you got Saturday night in Tiger Stadium with Bama in town to sell? Let's do it. I mean,
no, I agree. I mean, it couldn't have set up any better, and that makes November 9th, which is already going to be a massive game just from the LSU football standpoint of you lose and you're out of the college football playoff deal.
You got a whole lot now outside of recruiting.
Now you've put another piece on top where it's going to be not only do you need to win this to keep your hope alive to make the postseason, you also want to win this and make an atmosphere out of it so that you can impress the number one quarterback in the country and his entire family. It's like it's going to be – November 9th is going to be massive.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge, man.
Massive.
I mean, that's what you played the game for.
Right.
Like, if you're not – like, this is who LSU is. You want to be in these positions, like, to where you have everything in front of you and play the game.
Yeah.
As opposed to – like, I see Brian Burgess in the chat, love BB. But he's like, you don't sell your entire draft class just to be able to get one player. It's like, this is the time you do. He is that good, in my mind. But I also don't think that's the same. It's not that. That's not the argument I'm trying to make. Yeah. I don't think this is he is a caveat to what you're trying to do. And LSU has not been that much in the NIL portal or in the transfer portal or in NIL. This is a mitigating circumstance where I think they have something allotted for him. And whatever happens, he's infatuated with Joe Sloan and LSU, and if he's that interested, don't give him an opportunity to say no.
I mean, he just saw Sloan develop Jaden Daniels into what he could be.
Helped.
I mean, that's what I think LSU is sitting on. That's their best argument. I mean, that's their best case. Is that this is who developed Jaden Daniels. I mean, this is
could be MVP.
And he only had 2 years with him. I mean, you'll have 3.5 years. He'll get here in January. He'll, most likely leave April of 2028. I mean,
be a father.
27. Excuse
Never
me.
Mind.
27.
Stewie makes a good point. Jakeem Stewart will also be in town on November 9th.
And I feel real confident about the Jakeem Stewart thing. Right, and I know that there's still time left for all of this to happen. But like we talked about with this Jakeem Stewart when, the transfer went down to Carr. When all of this went down with Jakeem Stewart, the only reason why he's at Carr, the only real reason you can come up with on how a kid at St. Aug transferred into Carr, had all of the credit shift and be on track to be reclassified and leave early in what ultimately is his junior year of high school, is Frank Wilson. I mean, that's it. And I'm not saying that came with some type of pledge and promise that if this gets done, you're going to LSU. But I believe that that's how it works. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and be naive to the fact of Frank Wilson did a lot of work in the middle of a game week for LSU to move a player in high school in his home city that probably cost him 8 to 10 hours of that week which, from our standards of people who love and support LSU, that's a lot for the associate head coach to be distracted from the team. And all of that energy was into putting Jakeem Stewart into a school that he could graduate early and be on a college campus a year earlier for. If he does not go to LSU, I will be shocked. Shocked. I mean, really. You got Frank Wilson doing Frank Wilson things in New Orleans for a kid at a player or at a position that LSU needs. I mean, there's no way I would bet against that. There's no chance that I would bet against that. I think Jakeem Stewart's going to live the life, go do the recruiting, go see all the campuses, see the big games, but he's going to end up in purple and gold. Because Jakeem Stewart wanted to go to college early. Nobody could make that happen except one person. And the one person is the associate head coach for the LSU football program.
These favors aren't free.
I mean, that does not come for free, right? Especially when LSU football needs a defensive tackle. I mean, sure, LSU's doing it for their own good. They're doing it in mind of saying, hey, you wanted to leave early, you wanted to graduate and go to college. We made that happen. We need a player that looks like you. I think all of that's done. I really do.
I would venture to say that LSU probably floated the idea of you graduating early. Like, you reclassify. Let's see if we can, kick the can on this.
I think that there were other schools in his ear.
Oh, yeah.
Because they wanted him to go to IMG. They wanted him to go to, they wanted to put in USC, wanted to put him out at some California prep school.
Matter Day.
Ohio State wanted to put him at IMG. LSU was playing defense the entire time, and he ends up at Carr. Come on. I mean, this isn't rocket science. It's not
Bishop Sycamore.
I mean, follow the thread. Follow the money, follow the trail. So, I think Jakeem Stewart is as big of a recruit. He's an enormous recruit. I mean, you've got two cornerstones on campus for the Alabama game. Really and truly, you've got two guys that could be at SEC Media Day representing your program 2 years from now in Bryce Underwood and Jakeem Stewart. They could be the faces of the program in 2 years. And they'll both be on campus next Saturday night, where Underwood's family and people need to see why he's been committed to LSU for over 300 days or nearly 300 days. And I just think it's the icing on the cake for Jakeem Stewart. It's just you're up next, buddy. Everybody's going to be everybody's going to be showing up to watch you play in this game next year. So, Spectrum WellCare, Oregon is a legit threat for Stewart. Have you ever met Jakeem Stewart? Have you ever heard Jakeem Stewart? He's an inner city New Orleans kid who is built around family, his mom, home cooking, and the heat. Jakeem Stewart is not going to sit up in Oregon in the middle of the winter by himself, away from his mom, away from home cooking. I'm not buying that. Oregon, they make push on everybody in the offseason and early recruiting days. When it's time to commit and say, hey, now you got to move up to Eugene. You got to leave Louisiana and move up here 3,000 miles away from home where you don't know anybody and the weather's about to change. And it's about to start snowing and raining every day for the next 4 months. All of that stuff looks great when you go up there and visit. All that money smells great when you go up there and visit in the middle of spring. Just like I got DK Moore. DK Moore's not going to Oregon. If he does, he's not going to stay. He's going to be up there in the middle of the season thinking, what the hell am I doing up here? You don't think Texas is coming in last minute and going to say, hey, here's your NIL package. Come to campus. And you don't think that DK Moore and his family are banking on that happening, using Oregon as leverage? Because DK Moore's the same way. He's a mama's boy, a family kid. I mean, look at the picture of of being here, of being at Texas.
His little brother. So
you can't move everybody up there.
Well, and you saw, I would look at no further than Colin Simmons and what Texas did. It's like, oh,
Right.
this changes the outlook of your program. Like, now we get it a little bit because Texas wasn't really in that ball game. And you saw Colin Simmons when it felt like he wanted to come to LSU. And then it's like, no, you don't let him leave the state. Now he's one of the best players on your team as a freshman.
Right.
And Corey Moore's in that same boat.
And that's what LSU's doing to Jakeem Stewart. Right? Like, Spectrum Wellcare, I know money talks. Yeah, money talks to a degree. Money talks to a point. Where I'm not saying that LSU's disrespecting on the financial impact. They can't make the financial offer that Oregon makes, but LSU makes a financial offer that's competitive, but it's also home. Like, your mom's an hour away, the cooking's right here, the summer, the weather is what you're accustomed to. All of your people are here. You're going to have support. You're going to have just the support system you need to get to the next level. Look, man, fit means a ton. And not just necessarily of, right time, right fit, all that's like we've all done it. You've all been in situations where you're like, this isn't for me.
The worst feeling in the world.
You're world.
I should have done this. I'm stuck here. I got to go to this camp. Fuck.
I mean,
and not one friend.
Right.
Ugh.
I hear the Oregon arguments. It's going to take I need to see it to believe it on Oregon. I need Oregon to come down south and get a real player that goes up there, sticks. Look, I buy into the Oregon brand. I think that they're legitimate. They're a threat. I still don't think that they can come in here and pluck DK Moore, can't come pluck Jakeem Stewart, guys like that. Until they do, I'm riding with Frank Wilson, man. I mean, you're really going to bet against Jakeem Stewart going to LSU after Frank Wilson placed him at Carr because he wanted to graduate early? If you want to take that bet, go ahead. I mean, like, that's hitting on 18 in blackjack to me. That makes no sense. That makes zero sense.
You got some fine line.
The Bryce Underwood stuff, I hear it. I think LSU they need to make sure that it hits next Saturday night. I believe it will. But out of Stewart and Underwood, I don't want to say that I have no concern over Stewart, but my concern level on Stewart is not what it is on Underwood. And even on Underwood, I think that LSU's sitting in a really good spot.
Yeah.
Agreed.